Good evening and welcome to another in our NAV Life series. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Hope that you get some value from what we will share this evening. This is actually a continuation of dialogue that we have been having over many weeks from before COVID, actually, the pandemic. We have been having these NAV Live. We actually started live and we are now online. And it is a service, an outreach of the St. Andrew Church of Christ. Right, so today we're going to be looking at the issue of overcoming fears. Today it's a conversation, but we will get into that. Let me just start by carrying you through some basic, if you want to call it housekeeping. All right. So we're going to ask you if you could keep your mics muted unless you have been identified to speak. So we're going to ask you to keep your mics muted. You need not have your cameras on. If you decide, if you're going to converse with us, then maybe you can also bring up your camera. We ask that you would sort of raise your hand. The session today will probably be more interactive than some of the others in that we want to have a conversation today, but we still would like for you to raise your hand so that you can be identified to speak. Right, so our facilitators, Brother Andre Allen Casey is with us. He is, as I keep saying, you're tired of hearing that now, he's my #1 counseling psychologist here. And he has been assisting in this area, helping people to address their challenges for a number of years. You can see from the screen. He's trained in Alabama, also at Northern Caribbean University. And he is a hands-on practitioner. So that's our lead facilitator this evening, Brother Andre. Strong Christian and a practical gentleman, clear about the guidance that he provides. And so we look forward to what he will share with us this evening. I am Trevor Smith, and I have been involved in helping people to look at behaviors from another perspective. For example, we have this certified behavioral coach program that I have developed. It's actually backed by the International Coach Federation. And in it, we help people from different areas to look at behaviors and to see how a better understanding of ourselves in the first place and understanding others can resolve a lot of issues, a lot of conflicts, a lot of the problems that people are having has a root in some of failure to fully understand interpersonal relations. And so whether it is in marriage, whether it is at the workplace, in church, wherever. So that's, I suppose, the contribution that I have been making. Some years ago, I also dabbled in publishing. So I have 2 books on Amazon. But be that as it may, we want to go forward. But before we do that, if you don't mind, I'd ask you to bow with me in a word of prayer. Almighty God, we just give you thanks, Lord, for the opportunity to be able to share thoughts, share concepts, share ideas that would help individuals to better navigate through the challenges of life. We pray, Lord, that as we go into this session, that you would guide our thoughts, help us, Lord, to be able to provide insights that are valuable in terms of helping people to navigate through lives. We pray, Father, that the conduct of this session will go well, everything will be in order. And we pray, Father, that those concepts, those insights that are of value will be not only heard, but will be applied as we move, Father, to have your people draw closer to you and to have them live more closely together. We pray all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so my brother, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I want to start. Well, I want to start off as Brother Smith mentioned, with the fact to again talk about fear, but I want to put out some areas out there, and I want to get I want to get folks to talk about these different areas now. In sharing these specific areas, by and large, I am not saying I have the answer, or the answer will be able to be furnished here and now, but we really want to explore and have a conversation as to some of the areas that we might recognize that fear is driving us as to why possibly we're not accomplishing certain things on our own. And let me go ahead and go right there from now. It could be fear of relationships. Why are we having those fears? Where is it possibly coming from? We don't know, but we can explore some of those things. You know, fear of intimacy, fear of being alone, fear of death, you know, fear of success. but all different types of fears that you might be struggling with. And while by and large we believe that we the last 2 weeks or 2 weeks before, rather, in our last session, we may have given you a template to work with as to how to overcome or manage those fears. What we are still saying is that if you find that there is a particular fear that is interfering with not only your progress, but how you live or how you manage your life and livelihood, then we are appealing to you to come on, to talk up, share, mic up. Talk, you know, we don't want it to give a treatise now, so we don't want it to stay too long. If you could just identify the fear take about a minute or two, not more than 2 minutes. We have a couple of folks on and the numbers are growing, but so not more than 2 minutes, just to come on and talk about a possible fear that you're having, and let us probably have a conversation around it. Now, it does not necessarily mean that myself or Brother Smith, you know, will have the answer or our answer for you. Those who are on this platform that I'm pretty sure can give some added and some valid suggestions to you to help you to overcome those fears. So today is one of those days where we want to hear from you and also get some feedback and some information then. And where we too are prepared to learn from you as it relates to different ways in which we can overcome our fears. Brother Smith?
Right, sir. So yeah, we welcoming. We're just waiting for any individual who is ready to share? I had a technical problem with my power went, but I'm on. I hope everybody can hear what I'm saying.
Okay, yes.
So yeah, while
Mr.
people
Lastine has
line
a
up.
hand up.
Pardon me?
Lastine Brown has a hand up.
Okay, good. So there we go. So go ahead, please.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So one of my recent fears is the new variant of COVID and the measures that have been taken. So COVID is nothing new. It has been there over a year and a half now. However, every time we think that things may get to normal, then something comes along. So in my organization, there are some stringent measures that comes with the same COVID and persons not being vaccinated. And so even yesterday, I was speaking to one of the managers, and what will happen to the persons who are not vaccinated, possible transfers. But not only that, but the other persons who will be left in the offices. So fear of how persons, whether they are transferred or they are left in the office, how we will manage out there, and also fear of how COVID will affect the family, the church, etc. That's
Okay. You know, I mean, I can start. One of the things that we had mentioned as it relates to our fears is the fact that the fear can literally cripple us, and it can take us out of what is called the learning zone. If we concentrate a lot about what can happen to us, or how is it that our fears can interfere with how with how we live, or even protect ourselves for that matter, then in truth and in fact, our fears will be ruling us. You see, if we don't start to begin to talk about how we can not only overcome our fears, or speak about what is it that I can do to ensure that I am safe, that I save myself, then sometimes we, and this is not a good word, so I'll tell you, I warn you already, it's not a good word. Sometimes, to say Lastine, we can sensationalize our fears, or better still, sensationalize our problems. So if we sensationalize the problem, the more the problem, the more weight we put on the problem. The big, if we identify the problem as one that is overwhelming, then the truth is our ability to not only manage ourselves, but manage our outcome become even more minuscule, which then cause us to be in more fear. And so it is one thing to identify and to be realistic about what the fears are. So we're not saying it is not so. But then another conversation we can have is, okay, I understand this is my fear, but what is it that I'm prepared to do? And if we don't put ourselves into the learning zone so that we can get growth, so to speak, then the fear zone is going to continue to cripple us. And sometimes what we find is that we speak volume about the fear rather than start to think about how is it that I can overcome it? What is it that I can do? And ask ourselves the right questions so that we can get the appropriate answers. Sometimes we ask ourselves the wrong question. You know, somebody might say, what could that wrong question look like? So we might say, boy, I don't even know, or correction, not just a question, but even make the wrong statement. So we can say, boy, I don't know how they overcome this. Or we can talk about, look how much people this COVID-19 killed. Or look how much folks who take the vaccine and look at what it has done to them. You know, so we can start off in the negative, if you understand what I'm saying, and then recognize how difficult it is now to find solutions, because we are already making some statements that out there that almost cripple us, so to speak, and make it even much more difficult for us to try to find solutions in overcoming our fears. So I want to start that way. I don't finish the conversation, but I want to start with that mindset that oftentimes can cripple us in helping us to overcome our fears, because of the conversations we are saying, because we are sensationalizing our fears, because we're making our fears look bigger than us. I'm going to make this statement. Sometimes if we ruminate on our pain, it can distract us from what we need to be doing. It can distract us from what we need to be doing. If we ruminate on our pain, it can distract us from what we need to be doing. And so sometimes, while it is true, while on one hand we must identify it, on the other hand, it will be good for us. The learning zone to moving on to the growth zone says, this is what I am going to do, rather than saying, boy, these are my fears and I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm not saying that's what you said, actually, but I'm just putting that into the mix. Brother Smith or anybody else. But last thing, I don't finish answer your question totally.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
All right. Having a little technical challenge. Are you hearing me clearly?
Hearing you good. Hearing you well.
All right. Okay. I need to get this out. So I want to share a thought that is tangential to the question. I don't want to get specifically to the, but it's aligned to what you're saying and the approach. And one of the things that I think we know the little statement that talks about fear. When you spell it out, it is false evidence appearing real. Everybody has heard that, right? False evidence appearing real. So yeah, so there is something there that sounds as if it's real, but it's not totally the case. But so again, bear in mind that I'm not speaking about the specific case of COVID. Where I'm going though is that we can actually get ourselves to a place where we hard words, invite the very thing that we fear. Okay, sorry. When we talk about fear, unfortunately, everybody knows my dog story. Right? I'm not going to tell it tonight, so don't worry about it. You have heard it 100 times now. But I want to draw something from the dog story. All right. Very. That's my probably number one fear, dogs. All right. That they're going to bite to whatever it is. One of the things that we know about dogs though is that they sense the fear. So I remember, years ago, pretending, going on as if I'm scared. And not a real big dog, so I think I could manage it. And the dog actually started to to rush on me. So there is something about the sense you fear. So the message then, or the point I'm saying is that by being fearful and exhibiting fear around dogs who might not otherwise be interested in me, I could actually be inviting them to attack me or to see me in a different kind of light. All right. So let me share another personal example, and that's why I want to just put it in context so that we understand that can be applied across different kinds of fear as against specific fear. All right. The first time I went to get my driver's license, I feared that I wouldn't perform well. I'd been driving, doing all sorts of, so I could manage. I knew what I was doing. But I was so concerned about messing up that I was a bag of nerves. So the gentleman says, go up on the stand, so you can do the hill start. I went up, believe me, so start now, start, what was he saying? I didn't understand what he was talking about. So ultimately the man just says, you know about clue. So when I actually, the next time I went, I actually took a tranquilizing pill, trust me. So I'm just saying to you that sometimes, and it's along the line where you're saying that the fear could actually, so the dread that I had, this, fear that I would mess up, actually, in fact, led me to the very result that I wanted to avoid. So we have to understand how the mind works in terms of things that are concerning, things that we set up. Well, actually, in the cases that I mentioned, I set them up as things to be alarmed about. So all of this is in my head. So it is how I view the situations. It is how I place labels on them. It is how I formulated outcomes and the implications of the outcomes. All of that. All I was going to do was to take a driving test. I've been driving around. I've done the parking, done all the things easily. If I had not cast it in my mind as a major hurdle, as something that, and even if it's a major hurdle and I didn't clear the hurdle, it's not a problem. I just have to just go back again. So this applies to a lot of stuff. We can talk about it in terms of examinations as well, where the fear of, failing the exam, when we go in there, we're mentally shut, and we have to understand. No, the neuroscience gives you all the physiological problems that you have these, these all sorts of chemical things going on in your brain that you do not think as clearly when you are in a zone where you're fear and logical, clear thinking don't go together. And that's where the problem is. And so that's, I wanted to put that on the table. But in terms of, go back now to the COVID situation. One approach to things that you fear is to have strategies, have clarity as to what it is that can prevent the outcomes that you don't want to happen. So that's basically what it is. So if you know that X is going to happen, if you do Y, then try not to do Y. So those are some of the things that we have to look at. And so I, for one, I have a healthy respect for COVID, and I take the necessary precautions so that I don't have to be overly fearful as to the outcomes, because I do what is required. So I don't know if I've muddied the water, etc. But I definitely wanted to go back to my original statement in terms of the mindset and how we can create the environment for the things that we fear to actually happen to us. And to, when it happens, that we find ourselves in a position where we are not as competent in dealing with it as we could have been if we were more rational, if we were more thoughtful, if we actually placed it in terms of frame it, right? That's the word. Frame it in a way that respects the fact that it is a possibility, but also frame it in a way that we are not without agency, we are not without capacity. We can, in fact, deal with fears. Hope that that does something to at least stimulate dialogue. Over to you, sir.
Last thing, did we answer your question? I think Brother Smith may have answered the question, the latter part of your question. I mean, the latter part of what he stated.
Yes, Brother Andre, it did some justice. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, do we have any more comments or any other fears, or even the statement that Brother Smith made? You know, this idea that we might even welcome our fears, that we are, you know, or do we find that we're not framing, you know, or reframing, I should state. And this is why oftentimes we might find ourselves in that place where we are still driven by fears. Any comments on that? What about fear of failure? Anybody want to talk about fear of failure, fear of the future, fear of rejection? Fear of rejection. Let's even look at fear of rejection. Anybody want to talk about that? You know, fear of death, fear of loneliness, fear of change, fear of sickness. Well, a part of fear of sickness came up. Anybody? So I put it out there. Any of these fears might intrigue us. Do we have anything into the chat? Anybody want to put up their hand? What kind of fears do you have? How you know it's not fear driving you? Are you fearful to talk now?
I was following on Facebook and I realized I couldn't talk, so I switched. I put fear could also mean face everything and rise. So I heard you talk about rejection and things like that. I mean, at some point we're gonna have to face whatever it is that we think was gonna hold us down our back. So because we can't stay one place forever, we gotta face it and move forward. So
excellent. That's I mean, Miss White, excellent. I love that. That at some stage we have to face it. What am I going to do? Am I going to allow it to continue to overcome me? You know, sometimes as far as our fears are concerned, you know, we allow those fears to literally cripple us. And I'm not going to go back over the presentation because we discussed all of those things into the presentation that I did may have been 2 weeks or so ago. So we're not revisiting that. What we want is to find out from people. Do you have some fears? No, literally, do you have some things? I know you don't necessarily have to come out and talk out your business. Not asking to do that. You can talk in third person. You can't even talk about someone that you know. You can frame it that way too. But seriously, You know, we want to hear from you about, hey, how do I know that it's not fear driving me? Why is it that why is it that I can be preoccupied with people's opinion of me before I talk up? You know, I'm tempted to introduce, since anybody don't want to talk, I'm tempted to introduce some stuff here. Like, for example, different disorders. Because the truth is, we might have some different disorders and think it is fears. Or maybe we might have some fears that is driving those disorders. I don't know, maybe. Take, for example, being paranoid. Did you know that you can't talk about fears without saying something about paranoia? Because by and large, it interferes with us, it interferes with our thinking. For example, let me just run through just a few symptoms of what paranoia could look like. And I'm talking about paranoid personality disorder now. For example, unwillingness to forgive perceived insults. Why would you be unwilling to forgive perceived insults? Why? What is driving that? Could it be because you're afraid of people, take advantage of you? Or you do not want to be vulnerable? Is it because your fear of being vulnerable? That's the reason why, as far as you're concerned, if you even think that somebody insult you, you're going to go on the defense, so to speak. You know, again, I'm going to put something else out there. Okay, very good. Same under the same umbrella, paranoia. Excessive sensitivity to setback. You know, why is it that if you don't get what you want, you know, if things don't work out the way that you want it to work out, why is it that you know, you feel defeated in even wanting to try again? Why? Is it that no, a fear now has now settled in and is now driving your actions? So you say, you know, I can't bother, I'm not bother. But not only that, distrustfulness and excessive self-reliance. What do you mean by distrustfulness? It just seems like you can't trust anybody. Why you can't trust anybody? What are you afraid of? Is it that in the past you have had disappointments? In the past, persons have said things and done things to hurt you, and as a result of that, once bitten, twice shy. So we're not going to give anybody else a second chance. Again, put everybody into the same category, so to speak, and box them into that category. And so because of fear of being hurt again, you do not make yourself available, so to speak. Let me look at another one here. Relentlessly suspicious. Well, you know, why are you relentlessly suspicious? Whenever you walk, you jump for everything. You know, what is happening? What is happening to you while you are relentlessly suspicious? I hope folks can hear me. I hope I didn't get kicked off. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
You're good, you're good.
Okay, excellent, right. Or look at this one here too. Consumed by anticipation of betrayal. All of these fall under paranoid personality disorder. But one can easily understand how fear is easily a part of that. That fear, even to our paranoid personality disorder, fear is intrinsically woven into paranoid personality disorder. Consumed by anticipation of betrayal. So who you trust? You can't trust nobody, you know. Really can't trust anybody. It's like, you know, you wouldn't even have one eye closed. You have two eyes open. Right? You overlook nothing at all. Right? And so you see, why? And that's what we want to have a conversation with folks about. Why? Do you find that might be happening to you or happening to the persons that you know? You know, so why? So that's just one. I might have two more, but let me get some feedback from you though, before I move on to another one. Or from anyone for that matter. Do we have anything in the chat? Any comments in the chat about what I just shared? No? Yes? Anything in the chat?
It's the same. It goes back to the COVID
Okay.
situation as to whether you take it or not, and you know, yeah.
Okay. Let me introduce.
So let me read it. Let me read it because I think there's a second part to it. So let me read it. So there, some people or Christians are fearful of contracting the virus, COVID-19, or fearful of taking the job. I sometimes have the fear or probably concern of dying and leaving my children behind, not knowing if they will be faithful to God, and also uncertain about what future holds for them in this evil world.
You want to take it or you want me to take it?
No, you deal with it.
Okay. I mean, okay, excellent. Well, again, as far as the COVID job is concerned, and you know, don't want to let this be an overkill, but again, you know, one of the things that we had looked at in terms of looking at our fears and even facing those fears is also look at the risk analysis where those fears are concerned, and then ask now, because remember now, you know, there might be good reasons for us to have those fears. So we cannot ignore the facts in relation to those fears. We're not going to ignore the facts. Notwithstanding though, if it is the case where the worst case scenario of our fears is what we're afraid of, and we can do nothing about it, then we might need to change how we feel about it. If we can't do anything about it, why don't we change how we feel about it? You know, so suppose I don't like concrete walls, and everywhere I go I say concrete wall. Then I can continue to be flustered and frustrated in relation to my concrete wall, or I can say, well, there's nothing I can do about concrete wall. And suppose somebody says, but if they say, but every time I say concrete wall, I get sick. Well, look at again, get sick. Why don't I just go there? That's all I'm saying. Why don't I just go to the worst case scenario? And when I go to the worst case scenario, I said, okay, then what's the worst that can happen? Well, what's the worst can happen? You can die. Okay, you can die. Somebody says, but I don't want to die. Yeah, but suppose you cannot avoid it. Suppose you hear that you have a dreaded disease and it's a terminal illness. It's a terminal illness. Somebody says, yeah, but I'm not saying your fear is not justified, but I'm also saying though, some fears rather are not justified, but I'm also saying when you go to the ultimate end of those fears, when you go there, you say, well, okay, well, guess what happened? Look at me, you know. Yeah. No, the question is, so somebody might ask, you know, this might sound very morbid or what have you, but somebody might ask, another person might say, but why not? Somebody might have a different relation as far as their faith is concerned, and says, you know, my Bible tells me that, boy, you know, when I'm in the body, I'm absent from the Lord. This is my way to get home, to reach home. You know, this world is not my home. I'm just passing through. You know, that's all I'm saying here is when we go to the ultimate end, and if the ultimate end means that I'm going to lose my life, then can you do anything to stop it? If the answer is no, then maybe we need to not be afraid of it, but prepare for it. Not be what? Afraid of it, but be what? Prepared for it. Be prepared now for that ultimate end. So go there, go right there. Okay. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
There's a hand. I didn't see any hands. No.
Yeah, there's a hand.
Okay, let them go first. Then. Okay, I want to add to what you were saying here. Go ahead. Who's the hand?
I come back down. Went to come back.
Okay, go ahead before my brother going in. I want to add to what brother.
Go ahead, brother Gunnar.
I just want to find out, is there a distinction between worry and concern, genuine concern? Or because I don't know if I care about not being infected with the virus to the point that I will take the necessary step to avoid being, so like obeying the protocols and so on. Is that the same thing as, you know, being fearful, or is just, I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but is there a distinction between worry, fear, and genuine concern? So if you can help me out to, you know, get my head clear, if you will. I don't know if you understand what I'm asking.
Okay, I think so. You want to talk, Brother Smith, or you going to talk?
Yeah, you have your mic out. Go on now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. No,
All right.
you go ahead. Go ahead. I will share afterwards.
Okay, so you know, being concerned, sometimes we use the word concern to camouflage fear, by the way. So let me answer it that way. Sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes we use the word concern to camouflage fear. But not only that, because you execute the necessary protocols, that's not fear. That is doing something about your fears, actually. That is doing something about your fears. As a matter of fact, that is confronting your fears and recognize, okay, then, can I do something about it? I remember that's what we said, you know, we said, if you can do something about it, then we're inviting you to do so. So now you would have overcome your fears. If on the other hand, when you go to the logical conclusion, you cannot do something about it because there are some fears that you're going to have, and no matter what you do, you're not going to change the outcome. So if that be the case, then the question is, why don't we then accept that new outcome rather than consistently living, you know, becoming anxious and becoming overwhelmed, and maybe by and large even kill off yourself quicker. Sorry, that sounds a little insensitive, if you understand what I'm saying. Because you know, we're trying to do something about something that we cannot change. Can you imagine someone say, I want to fly? You know, and every time them try and them get vexed and upset. When you get the vex, you can't fly. So I'm just saying to say, come to accept what you cannot change. Come to accept what you cannot change. And that by and large will help you to be in a better place in not only managing your fears, but welcoming the outcome. Brother Smith.
All right, so a couple of points. One of the things that I would say is that we mentioned the fact that you could actually invite the outcome that you don't want. Okay, so you fear something. All right, let me use a simple example. You fear dying in a car crash, etc. But somewhere in your head, you're saying, you know something, I don't want to be trapped in the car, so I put on a seatbelt. Yes, because again, remember, sometimes if you're, you know, you want to be able to jump out or do something, whatever. This is what's going on in your head. So when sometimes the fear can drive you to points of being irrational. where you don't make sensible decisions. The other alternative now is to say, okay, fine, I don't want to die in a crash. I'm going to make sure that I observe all of the road safety things. I'm going to put on a seatbelt. I'm going to make sure my car is whatever. I'm going to go and do a defensive driving course. I'm going to take every precaution, follow everything. So to answer Brother Gwendo's question now, am I worried? Am I concerned? Where am I? I am conscious of an outcome that's not desirable for me. I don't know what you want to call it. And I'm taking steps to ensure or to do my best, do my part, because as you said, there can be things that you can't stop. I'm going to do my part to make sure that at least I am not found wanting, that I brought about the outcome that I didn't want. So that's the first thing. That's the clarity for me, is that if you do not want certain things to happen, then take the steps. The other big one for me, and you raise it and I love it, is the go there. When you have a concern, go there. All right? I have had situations where we are saying, what is the worst that can happen? And you force yourself to say, you're sure that's the worst? You're sure that nothing else can happen? Go there, push until you get to the worst that can happen. And let me tell you, one of the things that the value of that is that you have been there. You have not, because remember, psychologically, it doesn't have to happen, in the mind can actually carry you there, and it's like real life. So if you actually are genuine, this searching to go to where the end result is and to experience that, go through all of this shot, ball, cry, do whatever, because you have no experience the worst that can happen. What else can happen after the worst? You can't just go through it. So that's a key now, is to go there and then hear what now? Start to move backwards. Is there something that I could have done to prevent, or can do, remember you can still do it now, can do to prevent that outcome from taking place? That's one of the best strategies that you can do to deal with overcoming your fears. So somebody put in the chat, I'm concerned that I'm going to die and don't know whether my children are going to follow God and die in the Lord. All right. So follow the example that I'm giving. Think about the worst. Think about the children becoming totally terrible, and you never want them to identify with them, that they are absolutely evil. Okay. Having got to that place where you see the children running wild, evil, totally, your heart burned with that. Now that should inspire you then to take steps to avoid that. That should give you the motivation then to live a life that is an example to them, to help them to come to a deeper understanding, to share with them the calamities that await along that line. So far from now, woe is me, and to go through that, you have from that now a motivation. You have from that some steps that you can take now to avoid that happening. And so, go back again, I suppose COVID is the answer. If you fear that you're going to die from it, well, there are steps that are out there. And one of the things that you have to then work out is which one is yours. If you have concern about the vaccine, what's the worst case that will happen if you take it? And what is the worst case if you don't? Those are some of the things that you just have to work through. And another important point, sorry, I don't want to dominate this thing. Another important point is to look at the facts. Look at the facts. Facts have a way. And by the way, nowadays, when we say facts, they have real facts and and just people that come up with craziness. I mean, believe you me, your truth and my truth. That's the order now. So we have to be very, very careful especially with social media now, where you're going to get some information that comes from some quote unquote reputable source, something is there. But you have to be very, very careful that you don't have fears. I find that the things that are forwarded to me are not usually things of encouragement. In other words, I don't see somebody sending me a WhatsApp thing to say, 100 more people took the vaccine and they're fine. I see, somebody in some underneath somewhere, whatever it is, that's part of the problem with social media, is that nobody forwards good news, basically. So all you're going to get is the thing. So I would believe that fears are being fomented by information that's not validated. Long talk. I don't know if I've answered any of the questions, but at least I said something.
Okay, sounds very good. Excellent. Anybody else? I see something in the chat here that about rejection. I'm tempted to unearth that, about rejection, relationships, so to speak. Go
into it.
There was a song many years ago that says, never make a woman, if you run down your shadow, you'll never catch. Never make a woman know how much you love her, for there will be no peace in your life. Right? And of course, that is from the male to the female. And of course, the females, do you have any songs out there about don't trust man? Or animals, a particular one also. Anybody? But why? Why is it that you see, we hear these songs, we follow on these songs, and literally, once we're going to come into relationships, everybody who come into relationships, so many years ago, I made a statement. I said that most relationships are based upon selfish motives. That everybody come into the relationship to see what they can get, not what they are prepared to give. And I suspect that is one of the problems that we continuously have in relationships today. Everybody wants to find out what they can get from the other person. And if they're not getting it, then as far as they're concerned, to what end? Why am I in this thing here? What am I getting from this relationship? And so you see, could that be one of the fears that we encounter? That what's the purpose of even trying to trust? We really come into relationships believing that, listen, man, we don't come with a template to trust. We come in relationship not trusting. All if I got married to, no matter how long the person, we got married to the person, you say, you can't stay there, you better not trust the person, yeah. So we come into a relationship and look for something to take us away from the relationship or to remind us that we should never trust you in the first place. So I'm saying, could even the fear, what is the fear that is driving that kind of thinking and behavior? That's my question to you. Brother Grinnell.
I think one's orientation, Brother Andre, have a lot to do with situations like those. If you ever grew up in a relationship or in a home where one person was that gave trust and was very loyal, and the other person do something that results in the other person being hurt, that can create a problem. And one of the things that I have observed over the years, I don't know if this can fit into this, so you can guide me as well, is that a lot of marital counseling are done because the two persons already plan to get married, are not to be counseled to see if they should get married. I don't know if I'm making sense. And that helped to create some of the challenges in terms of doubt and fears that if I extend myself too much, I might get hurt. So hopefully this relationship will work without me telling everything that should be told. see if you can expound on that for me a little bit, please.
I think you've done a masterful job. but that is so true. Excellent, and that is so true that we come into the relationship, and we have these preconceived notions or whatever. We have our own fears and idiosyncrasies that continue to not only dominate our thinking, but we bring it in and to the point where it starts to determine the kind of relationship we are going to have, and then everybody come feeling that they have a right to not only think that way, but to behave that way towards each other. And so you wonder, trust, why are we afraid to trust? Why are we afraid to trust, folks? Can I get some responses from folks, please? Why are we afraid to trust? Go ahead, Brother Brennan.
The fear of being hurt. I think, simply put, the fear of you getting hurt. Nobody wants to, I think. And then because of that, you cannot maximize the joy that that relationship can give because you're holding back.
Yeah. So the fear of being hurt. Anybody else want to add anything else? But that is beautiful, though. The fear of being hurt, and because I'm afraid of getting hurt, I'm not going to give the full me. I'm not going to make myself vulnerable. Jahari's window, and I'm not even going there. But seriously though, this fear of being hurt. Brother Smith, you want to comment?
Yes, there's some in the chat. I just want to look at it. I think groupthink is a big factor now in determining where people are. So even if I have not been hurt, the information is out there that this has happened to this person and that has happened to this person, and it's almost like a crowd sourcing. We just follow the crowd now, and I tell you, social media, believe me, is a huge factor in determining how we view life and how we step through life, because we would have heard about everybody who has ever been hurt, and we know all of that history, and so therefore we are going into it with that kind of mindset that it's not something to do. You better watch yourself when you go in a relationship, because you can't trust man or you can't trust woman or whatever. It's just a lot of it has to do with peer pressure. And no, unfortunately, peers are not just people that you know. It's all of the people that send you stuff on your feed. That's a thought. And then there were some people in chat, and I think Fiona has a mic open and wants to speak. Not anymore? Okay, sorry. On the chat, we are afraid to trust because we trusted and we're hurt, or, we were hurt. We experienced negative relationships. Yeah, some of that is there. And so what if you were hurt? Does that mean what? What does it mean? Yeah. So we fell down and bruised our knees at 4. Does that mean that we don't run or walk anymore? What does it mean if we are hurt? What's the implication? What does it say about going forward? Yeah. love to get some feedback, yes, from the other people, because this is supposed to be a conversation that we're trying to have today. So, yeah. Somebody says, stop running and walk. Yeah, okay, that's all right. And walk gingerly. You know, there is a, that's an interesting point you make. One of the things that people talk about aging and again, part of the neuroscience thing is that as you get older, one of the things you do is that you start to look down on the ground when you're walking, all right? And actually that is more likely to cause you to fall. Because normally when you have your head up, you can see obstacles ahead, right? And you can understand what's going on, so you can navigate better. So for example, if something comes across, because you have your head down, you're not seeing somebody running across you or something like that. So you're more likely to fall because, again, this is an example of a fear that actually might produce the outcome that you don't want. So you have your head right down, you're only looking at the next 2 steps, for example. You're not seeing ahead, which is what normally when people are walking, they can see what's going on. They have a view of all the environment that they're going into and can take precautionary measures. But because you're down, walking gingerly, as the person said in the chat, you're actually setting up yourself for exactly what you don't want. These are examples of, I wouldn't say irrational, well, maybe, yeah. You're not taking the logical steps to correct, to prevent outcomes that you don't want to happen. That's the key. Go there, look at what it looks like, and take the steps to make sure that it doesn't happen. People have panic attacks when it comes up to exams. And we talk about a practical one. Exams coming up, they're fearful, etc. The antidote to that is to prepare. Are you going to be concerned? Of course you're going to be concerned. But does that then brings you to the point now where you're hyper, ventilating, or you're nervous, you can't even think, you can't hold the pen because you're sweating. All I'm saying is, look at what you fear and try to work backwards from that to make sure that you take steps to prevent it from happening. That to me is a formula that works. Then one last thing, I think I keep myself quiet afterwards, is live also in the moment. That's a challenging thing. So people might say that don't make any sense. But the question then I would ask is, how many times have you had a terrible dread, believe you me, where you can't even sleep, toss and turn, and it just never happened? You just anticipate, I'm going to have to sleep on the street because I can't pay the rent. The landlord went throw me out. Whatever. Just think about it. Just go back to periods in your life where you have feared terrible outcomes. Maybe, you go back to your childhood. Why mommy going to kill me at lick when she come home? Maybe. But it's not happening. All I'm saying is that when you put yourself in a place where you anticipate the thing, the fear, what you're actually doing is experiencing it all of those days until it happens. So you might actually suffer from it more, or it might not even happen. So in a sense, it hasn't happened yet. Don't live it out. Don't let it cripple you from before. Let us see if there are some things that you can do to avert it. You know, if you think about hurricane, you get the warning, everything, yeah, but it still turned. Just have a sense that don't magnify what it is that you think might happen, and have it become real. No. Yes, you might face it. Remember, I very agree that you need to go there and experience it. But having done that, then move from it. It's not something that's real right now. It is a possibility. It might even be a probability. It might even be definitive, but it's not today. It's not today. And so I think that should also help us with our state of mind and with how we are navigating the time then up to that period, if you want to look at it, if it is something that is inevitable. But who knows what is inevitable? We can't predict the future. And so if it is not happening now, I would say understand that this is just a possibility or a probability. It's not yet reality. All right, Brother Andre, back over to you.
Excellent. Brother Brunel, I see your hand up, and we want to deal in the chat here. Prevention is a two-way street, but we'll come to the chat. Go ahead, Brother Brunel.
The point I want to make about the hurt thing, I remember years ago, I actually became sick because I was hurt by a girl. Gave my heart over to the wrong person. And it got really badly hurt. So much so that I end up at the doctor and everything. But my heart got mended. The point I'm making is that we're gonna have some hurt, but we can't stop. And also, you cannot love without becoming vulnerable. Once you love, you are vulnerable. Some people will use you, some person won't use you. Jesus Christ he loved us and they spat upon him. That's what it is. So hurt is a natural part of life. And I think the earlier we can learn to live in the moment, because anything I've learned that we focus on Brother Andre and others, we magnify. If we focus on the negative and the hurt, after a while, we're not going to see nothing but hurt. And that's why I think the point that Brother Smith just mentioned about we have to try and live in the moment, make the best. You know, I had a particular situation the other day at work, and I was so taken up with it that I honestly became fearful of what can happen if I should get sick, if this should happen and that should happen. And I said, Alfonso Grenell, forget it. Why are you bringing up all of these things that may never happen? So I said, no. Because if they even happen, what are you going to do? You can't do nothing about it. So I decided I'm going to try and live. You know, some of us really just exist rather than enjoying life and making the best of it. So we have to realize that once we decide to go down a particular road, there are possible consequences, but don't look for the potholes and drop in them. Find the part of the road that you can avoid the potholes. You know that they're there, but drive on the side that will give you the best result and save the front end.
Deborah, go ahead. Excellent, Brother Smith. Go ahead, Deborah.
Good evening, everyone. That's so true, Mr. Gurnell. That's what I was going to add a while ago, that sometimes, even as it relates to relationship, we notice that when you just meet the person, when both of you come together, you would have come to the relationship or to the friendship or whatever with the experiences that you had before, but then somehow you're not thinking about your past relationships when you come together. You're just there, just in the moment. You're excited and all of that for months sometimes, but the moment you start thinking about, okay, probably there's a trigger, I don't know, maybe at a point something might happen that actually looks like something that happened before, and then you start wondering, okay, I wonder if this is gonna happen again. And then it's like that just that moment, it just changes everything. But when you think about it, you actually have the power not to allow it to change everything. You actually have the power to maintain living in the moment. Just tell yourself that. And it's easier said than done. But what I realize is that you just have to tell yourself that, okay, this might look like something that happened before, but this person is different. So let me not say that, or let me not expect the same things to happen. Let me just continue to enjoy the moment and enjoy the person. And every day, you just enjoy the moment, enjoy what is happening at the time, and allow yourself to just continue to feel how you felt. And I think that's where counselors give that encouragement to married persons to keep dating, to keep feeling like you just met, to try and do that, because if I think that is where everything just goes. You just start feeling, the moment you see something that looked like something that happened before, that fear, you feel as if, okay, this thing is gonna happen again, and you don't want to feel that way again, right? So as Mr. Grenell said, just live in the moment. I think that's the best way to overcome that fear, because other than that, I don't think there's any other way to overcome that fear. That's just my personal opinion on that. I don't think there's another way to other than just living in the moment and just saying, okay, this person is a new person. I'm just going to enjoy them, even though this thing might look like something but this is a new day, and each day, live every day as a new day. Outside of that, we're just gonna continue to live in the fear. So we just have to let go what happened in the past and move on.
Okay, excellent, good stuff. There's a comment, Christopher can possibly we want to other comments, but before I talk about the comments, our self-talk, really, or the reframing, as both Brother Smith, Mr. Bora, and Brother Grinnell, everybody, all three persons have been just echoing basically the same, very, very similar points about being positive, and I think that came out into one of the chats here that says, never come into agreement with negative thoughts, cancel or dispel them with positive ones. The kind of the way we think about things, and whether or not we can do something about it or can't do something about it, or whether we allow all the negative things of our past to continue to cripple and influence whether or not we think positively. And sometimes we make the statement, it is easier said than done. I like to and we make that statement, to let folks know that, hey, we're not saying it is not a uphill battle, so to speak, but after we say it is easier said than done, then plan to do it. Don't just leave it as it is easier said than done. So what all these three persons that just last spoke, have been saying is that, yes, it might be easier said than done, but plan to do it. Don't plan for driving the patrol. Brother Smith was the one who mentioned live in the present. And so that is so true, folks, that what you hear other folks are echoing and agreeing with in the different ways in which we can literally step out in overcoming and managing our fears. There was a comment that spoke about our faith and whether or not our faith, I must admit, it was dealt with into the first presentation where Delia, I think is the word, where the Bible said God has not given us a spirit of fear, from Timothy. And the Greek word there is Delia, which means fearfulness. And so because we have a faith, then in truth and in fact, it must, not even should, but it must have us expecting or working towards achieving a better outcome. Working towards achieving a better outcome, again, because of our faith. If you don't have any faith, then literally, as a matter of fact, even folks who are ill and going into operations, those who do not believe that they're coming out, sometimes perish from that operation. Those, on the other hand, who says, I see you later, I see you when I come out, unless there's no error on the doctor's side, or maybe your time is up. But all I'm just saying here, they have what the statistic shows, by and large, is that a lot of those folks really come out on the other side of their healing, again, because of their faith, because they believe that today is not going to be my last, so to speak, right? So it is within your capacity to ensure that you have a particular and a positive outcome, then you must do your part and do not give yourself a chance, literally give yourself a chance to succeed rather than giving yourself a chance to fail. Give yourself a chance to succeed. And if you give yourself a chance to fail, then I'm saying sometimes it is our fears that is not giving us ourselves, not giving us or giving ourselves that chance to succeed. So I just want to remind folks that, hey, going forward, man, hey, I'm going to give myself a chance. And be careful also that we don't allow other people's fears to cripple us. Very, very important. Don't let them dump their fears on you. Right? You want to continue with that, Brother Smith?
Yeah, actually I did, which is, some of the things sound simple now, but so get support, which is the same thing. In other words, it's, you're gonna get persons, the group think, dumping on you, but also you might have your own fear. Be selective, but share it with someone, and even the expression of the fear would help. Hopefully it is somebody responsible who will not just laugh at it, but would actually understand where you're coming from, and then maybe show you a path out, or to have you break down what is the fear that you have. And so sometimes when you decompile, when you pull the pieces together, somehow it's not as scary, it's not as daunting as when you look at the end, sort of end picture. So if that's going to happen, what are the components of this problem that we're having? And then by breaking it out, you also have a chance of knowing how you can take action. So my suggestion is that you have a discussion about your fears and with responsible people who can help you then express it. I think really, seriously, if you can properly articulate your fear, it gives you some kind of handle on it. I'm not saying it gives you control or it solves it, but you're in a better position to understand precisely what it is that I'm concerned about. So don't just leave it on a big label. Try to spell it out. Maybe even write it out document it so that you can understand specifically what is it that I am concerned about. Yeah. So that's a strong suggestion that I would have. I would also suggest pause, some kind of a, when you're going through that situation, stop a little bit, just time out. And there are different approaches to time out. You are in a position now where you really are deeply concerned about something, you feel that it's going to happen now. Say to yourself or say to it, listen to me, I understand how serious this problem is. I'm going to come back to it. But I just give me about 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And I promise I'm going to come back and deal with you. That's what you're telling yourself with the problem, right? So self-talk is important. So it does say, listen, I know this is urgent. I know this is critical. I am going to give you my full attention, but just give me a few minutes. I just want to walk around the house a little bit. I'll just go down the road a little bit and come back. And I will promise you that I will give you full attention. But I don't want to deal with it right now. I will come back. So you might go into a breathing situation or whatever it is that you go outside and go, water your lawn, do something. And then you can come back and deal with the problem. That's all I'm suggesting, is that you stand a much better chance of dealing with your fears when you're in a different space. So let cortisol go down a little bit and take some time out. Time out is important. Consultation is important. Those are things I wanted to on the table.
Okay, excellent. I think we have a comment, Deborah. I'm not seeing it up again. I did something to my screen. But go ahead. Let me see. Let me go back to chat here and see if I can put it up. Right.
I can read it. It says, very
Okay,
good
go ahead.
point. I was just going to ask about that. At times, wanting to support someone may cause you to be drawn into their fears. How do you deal with this support without soaking up? Without seeming to be insensitive. All right. And Merle was saying that she loved the idea of risk analysis. So that's the thing. How do you provide the support without being drawn in?
So didn't you?
Not really.
Well,
What I was saying is that somebody should actually go to get good advice. But her question is this: when I come to you for the advice, how do you protect yourself now that you not get caught up in my fears? I think once there's a logical, because again, you're going to go to somebody who's going to give you who's rational, logical, and who has and the basic approach that should be taken would be, okay, Andre, talk to me. What is the fear that you have? Explain to me. How does it manifest itself? How does it make you feel? How does it come about? What are the, all of those kind of things. So those is more questioning than pointing to say, one, you feel a lizard, you madman. No. Yeah, just go through an questioning situation, which should then open up the possibilities then of looking at aspects of it that can be either to say this is not likely to happen, or this action can be taken to prevent it, or at least put you in a position where, let us take the worst case, that this is going to happen, and I'm going to say to you, brother Andre, I don't see any way around it. You're just going to have to face it, and these, this is going to happen inevitably. Get yourself ready to deal with it. So maybe that is the other piece of it. But I don't see why I would have to be caught up in your, be concerned, yes, that this could happen to you, and that, yes, there's a possibility that it might happen to me. But then in the dialogue, I should be better prepared to deal with it, even if it happens to me. All right, we're drawing down in time. I see Pauline has a hand up, so.
Yes, good night.
Go ahead, Pauline.
Brother Simit made a very good point when he said self-talk. It's very good. That's what I do all the time. I am desperately afraid of lizards. And when I see the lizards, sorry, sometime in the house. Sorry, and there's nobody to run the lizards for me. I talk to myself about the lizard. Why are you afraid of the little lizard on the wall? Look how big you are. Don't pay the lizard any mind. Leave the lizard alone. And I'll do that for, say, a minute, 2 minutes. But then when I turn and look at the lizard again, the fear comes back. So I have to repeat the talking. So that's very good. That's my thing. I do that. Self-talk. And it really helps. But at the same time, the fear is not gone. It's still there. But it helps. Because talking to yourself helps because it relieves the stress of just seeing the lizard. And another thing again, brothers and sisters, the solutions that you're offering, they are very good, very practical, very down to earth. But sometimes some people, they have to be of that mindset and they have to be mature enough to apply those principles and those solutions. Because if they're really afraid of something and that fear is there, then they are afraid to let go of that fear. Maybe they were hurt, maybe they were rejected, and they still have not healed from it. So, they're still afraid to let go of that fear. But I like the suggestions. I'm happy that I came on, and thanks very much.
Okay. I thank you very much, Pauline.
Thank you, Pauline. All right. So, Brother Andre, there's a Fiona that says self-awareness is key. A lot of people are toxic and have no idea how they present in relationships, the home, at work, or in general. Fear is out. Fear keeps us stuck and stagnant. Do the self-work, break yourself down to build yourself up. So thank you for that. Pauline mentioned one thing about persons who are stuck in the fear. One of the things that we said that very, very outcome, I think, in the opening statements was that in this conversation, there might be issues that require work. In other words, so we're not trying to solve everybody's, because fear, as Andre mentioned, could also be a disorder that needs more work. So I don't want anybody to believe that what we have tried to do here now is to solve everybody's fear problems, and that, that's not the case. But at least we wanted to provide some practical things that can be done to help you to navigate through your fears. Last words to you, my brother. Not hearing. Go on.
Okay, right. Just to say again, not only do we want to thank everybody for coming, but also that as it relates to our fears, we can either remember what I said we have to give ourselves a chance to succeed. Give yourself a chance. You have to believe that, hey, I can do this. Don't make other people tell you what you can't or cannot do, and don't their fears on you. Or sometimes we get into that. Sometimes the parents dump their own fears, their children too. But I'm just saying here, and as a result of that, we have been nurtured in fear. We have been nurtured in fear, which then manifests itself into a personality disorder. But I'm just kind of saying, by and large, though, that going forward, let us change the direction of our neurotransmitters in our brain. That says, yes, I can, yes, I will, yes, I must. There are some fears that we cannot do anything about it. The ones that we have come to accept what we can do something about, and we come to accept that, then we must do something about it. Whatever you cannot do anything about, then you leave it alone. That is now in the hands of Almighty God. You have no control where that outcome is concerned. And when to leave it alone, therefore do not worry about it. That is my last.
Okay. So that's where we are. Want to again thank you for the active participation that we had. Really enjoyed the session. And want to remind you that the Navigation in Life series is an outreach program of the St. Andrew Church of Christ. We are concerned about the challenges that people are facing today, especially in the context of the pandemic and its stresses and so on. And so we want to address these issues, which might not be able to fully in our worship service. Having said that, however, we would love to invite you to join us in our worship tomorrow, as with other areas tomorrow, it will be online. So we have the online, you can use the very same Zoom link and password. So we start at 9 and we go to 10:30, and then there is a Bible class at, well, the Bible class will be immediately tomorrow, immediately after the worship service. And on Tuesdays, we also meet online at 6:30 for our worship service. Now, these sessions are recorded, and you can actually find all of them, including tonight's, at these locations. So it's on YouTube, Facebook, and also on our website, standrewchurchofchrist.org/media. And so that's there, and you can actually see the entire series. We meet in these sessions on the first and the third Saturday, which would mean that we are looking at now the 4th of September for our next session. The topic to be determined. You can, in fact, if you wish, while we still have it open now, in the chat, if there's something that's burning that you would love for us to discuss, you could just put it in the chat now so that we could actually look at whether we can examine that in our next session. So giving you the opportunity to influence the topics that we discuss. So if there's something that is of concern to you that you would like to have us discuss, you could just type it in the chat, or you can send us the email, St. Andrew Church of Christ. I think it's info. Here it is, info@standrewchurchofchrist.org. All right, thank you again, Brother Andre. Thank you very much. And
Thank you too.
all of you who have come forward and shared.
Indeed.
I find that these things are empowering, it's helpful. Believe me, people are hurting. People are in a position where they're not able to cope. And some of that is manifested in some of the domestic violence. Some of it is, manifested in mental health issues, etc. Do not assume that people are able to manage and to navigate through life. People have genuine challenges, and many of them are not willing to share. And so they actually have the issue inside, and it happens until it explodes. So I would like to invite you to be, I don't know what you want to call it, evangelists in the sense of relationships, in terms of reaching out. See if you can actually connect with somebody in a more meaningful way. Don't assume that everybody's okay. Even those who used to putting out a proud face might be having an issue. Reach out to somebody in a more meaningful way, not just hi, hello. Just see if you can connect better. That is the challenge that I would like to give to you until we meet again on the 4th of September, is that see people in a different light. Just wonder, if by reaching out, saying a kind word, asking a question, you might not find that there was a need that needed to be addressed. Yeah. No sermons. I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask that we look out for each other in a different kind of way. Right? The time that we take to forward, the tweet, maybe we could send something uplifting. That's it. I'm sorry. So you put somebody before a mic, then you ask, you get what you ask for. All right. So have a good night. I am respectful of your time. So all the very best.
Is Pauline Williams still on?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good
Are
to
you
see you.
are you on?
Definitely. You've never heard me otherwise.
What's up?
Yeah, and I'm just excited to see that you're on and continue to participate and support these important Love Life sessions.
Yeah. How was
Can
your
count it.
vacation?
It was good. It was good. It was good.
Did you rest?
Give it thanks. I tried. Put it that way.
Someone have to